at the funeral, James, there were so many young people there that I covered as a broadcaster, but they looked lost.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was a hypocrite because I could get out there and talk about the accolades and accomplishments of sports and our teams and all these different things here in our area all night. But I wasn't really given a whole lot of credence to if they knew the good news of the Lord Jesus, if they knew that there was someone who was going to love them unconditionally.
Yo, what's up, everybody? This is James Howard Jr., and you're tuned in to another episode of the Men to Men podcast, where our purpose is simply to help men honor God in every single part of their lives. I'd like to thank all of you who've been checking out this podcast over the last few weeks. We are about 3 episodes deep into this podcast, so we had some great guests so far. The first being my dad, the second being brother Mitch Williams, and actually today we're going to be looking at the second part of my conversation with brother Mitch. But before we dive into that, I wanted to ask you a question. Have you ever thought to yourself, man, am I actually doing what God wants me to do? Have you ever felt something deep down inside of you where you felt like God was telling you to maybe step out on faith, or maybe you do something different? Maybe it was in your relationship, maybe it was in your career. Well, today we're going to be looking at Brother Mitch's story, and we're going to talk about how he went from a career in broadcasting where he was a sportscaster for 25 plus years, a very, very comfortable position. He had a solid paycheck, and he left all of that behind because he felt like God was calling him to something greater. So my prayer for this episode for you today is, if you are listening to this episode and you're trying to make a decision if you're going to step out on faith and do what God is telling you to do or not, my encouragement and my prayer for you today is that you will have the courage to take that step of faith as you listen to Brother Mitch's story today. All right, let's jump into this episode of the Men to Men podcast.
After serving, working 25 years at WDAM TV, going from part-time to full-time to being a sports director, and covering events for like 9 counties, I did camps with Steve McNair.
Okay.
And for a lot of the pro guys like Brett, Adelius Thomas, these guys who were around here all the time, they did camps in the summer.
Yeah.
But I did the most with Steve.
Wow.
And they were great. I mean,
Yeah.
we would have them at Alcorn. We'd have them in Nashville. And we'd have, they were just great. These meet kids. And we still see kids now that started there, like when they were like 4 and 5 or 6.
Wow.
But Stephen died on the 4th of July of 2009.
Oh, yeah. I remember.
Yeah, and it was really crazy. And Mama Mac, who dearly loved her, his mother, called and said, I want you to put together his funeral. And that was a request. I don't know why she thought of me to put his funeral together.
Wow.
But she said, I need you to do that. I need you to facilitate it and lead it. I need you to put it together. And I told Mama Mac, and this is at 2:00 in the morning, the day he was killed. And I said, there's no way I'm not going to do that. I can't do that because we're all grieving. And she said, baby, you got to do it, and hung up the phone.
Wow.
2 hours later, I heard from Bus Cook, his agent. He called and said, yeah, you need to be at a meeting at 10:00 on that Sunday morning at Reed Green Coliseum. And there we put that thing together. And
Yeah.
called our good friend Michael Miner, and he got choir West Point. And,
Oh, yeah. Oh, Mike.
yeah, called Mike up. Yeah, called him up and said, man, we need what. And then Mama Mac called later on and said, this is the number of Dottie Peoples.
Yeah.
So you need to call her. And call her up, and just incredible people. And that whole week, nephew, I wrecked 2 cars.
You
that
wrecked
week.
2 cars?
Because I was still working in WDAM, trying to the story and the dynamics around it, trying to make sure we had some temperature. But I was putting together his funeral,
Yeah.
which was so nuts. Well, after it's over, and we're seeing they are taking Stephen out, and it's 6,000 people in there, biggest funeral in Mississippi's history. And I'm standing up there, and the missus comes up, and she says, baby, what's wrong? And I'm pretty much like a book. You know, you pretty much can kind of tell on my face if I'm good or not.
Yeah.
And she said, something ain't right. I said, I don't know. So they took him to the burial site. We went out to Mama Mac's house just to see her, Fred, Tim, his brothers, who I dearly love. And then the next thing you know, the Mrs. had gotten together with Miss Rhonda Higginson, and they said, "Well, we're going to the beach. Y'all going too?"
Yeah.
Never been to Gulf Shores, Alabama. Had never been. I lived in Hasbro. Never been there before.
Yeah.
And we took a ride down there, and they put us up, and then Pastor Dwayne cooked shrimp and grits that night. I'll never forget.
Yeah.
And then he said, "Let's go take a walk." And we had a conversation about what was happening internally, because at the funeral, James, there were so many young people there that I covered as a broadcaster, but they looked lost.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was a hypocrite because I could get out there and talk about the accolades and accomplishments of sports and our teams and all these different things here in our area all night. But I wasn't really given a whole lot of credence to if they knew the good news of the Lord Jesus, if they knew that there was someone who was going to love them unconditionally.
Yeah.
So
That's good.
Fast forward, I had a prayer group that knew something was going on because my attendance was not very good. I was really just struggling.
Yeah.
But loved the great counsel that I got from my pastor that night.
Yeah.
And what he told me, he says, what's going on with you is going to cost you something. And two, if something happens and you transition, you have to own it. And so I met with a guy named Bill Buckner, who was the state chairman of the Mississippi Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and had a great meeting with him. And then he asked me a question: how would you like to use your influence for over a quarter century for the Lord in the places where you used to cover sports? And I asked him, could I work for him that day?
Wow.
Now, mind you, now it is now up to 27 years I was working for Channel 7. So
Yeah.
I called the missus on the way home and said, hey, what do you think about that? She said, I'm with you. So 7 days later, I walked in there with my letter of resignation to Jim Cameron, and he tore it up. And I'm a little country. My granddaddy was, as you know, he always said, boy, you always got to be ready. So I always had another letter. I had another letter in my back pocket, and I gave it to him. And that started a journey. That was the first of 2011 that we started this journey, and been on it ever since.
I got you, man. So we talk about that, man. I was thinking about stuff to talk to you about, and I've heard it a couple of times, man. But that transition from, I would assume, a comfortable, I assume you got paid okay enough to feed your family.
Yeah.
To basically having that, 25 plus years.
Yeah.
That's a career.
Yeah.
Where you're sitting there, you're comfortable, man. You could have probably did that until you retired, to stepping out on this whole faith journey where you're going into this organization that's highly based off of fundraising and raising your own money and trying to find people to support it and stuff like that. How did that transition go for you, from just going from that comfortable lifestyle to really just stepping out on faith and really not really knowing, hey, other than, hey, God told me to do it, that's all I'm gonna do. How did that transition go for you and your family, man?
Lord have mercy, nephew. I don't know. I mean, it's scary when when thinking about it. I know at the time you say, Lord, I'm just here, and then you're like, still you having to deal with the spirit of fear. You got 2 kids in college. Your wife's not working at the time, and you get a guaranteed check every 2 weeks.
Wow.
On something you've been doing since you were 21 years old.
Wow.
And you're all, and I was okay, all right, okay, okay, we're here, and the part of being a missionary in FCA is raising money.
Yeah.
And I worked with a lot of nonprofits and helped raise money, but I didn't have to raise more than $1,000 for something. Get kids to eat,
Right,
just
right.
no, yeah.
Couple sandwiches.
Come on.
Right.
I mean, well, we had to have a budget of $125,000.
Oh wow.
Which was nephew. That was only like a $50,000 salary. I wanted to bring a guy out of Mississippi College with me, a guy named Justin Graves with me.
Yeah.
He was Justin, who's now a young adults pastor in Jackson now, but he served with us when we first got here. I loved him. He was from West Jones High School, and crazy. That boy put out, he gave out, what was it, 1,000 Bibles in inner city Jackson. And just walked curly haired, walked out there and said, "Hey, look, he's going to Callaway and Murrah. Hey, he gave all these folk Bibles." I said, "I want him."
Wow.
So he was a graduate of Jones Junior College before he went to Mississippi College. I said, "So we got to raise money for him." He got a young wife. We just gonna believe the Lord, and so, but still dealing with that spirit of fear. Lord, what if I fail?
Yeah.
And really, when I look back at it, it was a testing of your faith.
Yeah.
Where you're like, okay, you really believe in me? You can talk all that stuff, but you really believe that I called you to this? You really believe that all of this stuff that was, yeah, do you really believe that? That was really the question.
Yeah.
And we were trying to raise money, and then it got down to the point where I told Baby, I said, okay, I'm going to put, take a little money out of our 401k, and so we could pay bills.
Yeah.
And before I could do it, I was doing a camp for a guy named Jarius Norwood. He was a running back Mississippi State that played for Atlanta Falcons, but his agent was Bus Cook. Mm-hmm. And Bus asked us to go facilitate some media for him at a camp in Brandon, Mississippi, his alma mater.
Okay.
I'm out there, and our Mississippi summers in July, it's like brutal. So I have a water hose, and I'm hosing down kids, and with your finger in the hose.
Right.
And I'm just standing up there and right in the middle of 50-yard line, hosing down these kids, and I get my cell phone rings. Mm-hmm. And I don't usually I don't know why I had my phone with me. I usually during camps, I tell everybody I'm doing a camp.
Right.
So I had it in my pocket, and I didn't get it. And then the next time it rang again, and I got it. So I call the person back, and I said, "Hey," and I said, "Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, this is Mitchell. Yeah, hey, how are you? Yes, sir. I remember you." And I said, "Where are you?" "Well, I'm at a camp with Jarius Norwood out here." And he said, "Well, I hear you that you're getting ready to try to get on FCA staff and you're raising some money." I said, "Yes, sir, I am." He said, "Where are you?" I said, "Well, so far, since we've gotten the assignment in less than 3 months, we've raised about $12,000. I said, "What do you need?" He said, I need $125,000. So that takes care of 2 personnel budgets. Also, it expenses gas, insurance, one event for an expense for one event, and also it gives us in a position that if we have to have utilities for a building, it puts us in a position for that." And he said, "Okay." And he said, "Well, I've just called the state office, and I'm sending you $100,000.
Oh wow. Oh wow.
That, and I'm like, nephew, like,
100,000.
It wiped out our entire debt for a year.
Wow.
And gave us time to go and raise money for the next year and still do ministry. I cried on that 50-yard field at Brandon, Mississippi.
Wow.
Like a baby in front of all those kids. Because then I knew that the Lord had pretty much affirmed, this is where you're going to be. Mm-hmm. And also, this message that was in my spirit, that said you are to go back to where you come from, which, but you're going to serve me in that. You're not going to be covering anything. You're going to be serving me in it. So, was it scary? Yes.
Yeah.
Did my faith grow at the time? Without question.
Right.
He can make a way out of no way.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So with this podcast, it's really specifically focused on men.
Gotcha.
And so as men, we are called to be leaders of our family, leaders of our own lives, leaders of the community and stuff like that. And so when you are in a situation like that, especially when you're specifically talking about your family, man, and you are having to figure out like, hey, are we, like you say, are we going to make it? Are we going to have enough for the bills? Are we going to have enough for eating and all this kind of stuff, man? With that in mind, what would you tell a young man or a young father, a young husband who is feeling that the spirit moving inside of him to actually step out and do something? What would you, he was right here with us today. What would you tell him?
Nephew, I would ask the question with him is that what really do you believe? You know, if you believe that God has this in store for you, or you believe that God gave you this, that you believe that this opportunity, God gave it to you. But in between that is the facts of paying the light bill and the water bill and these kinds of things, or looking at children that need clothes or what. The question is, do you believe what you believe? Meaning, who you think provides the clothes?
Yeah.
Who do you believe provides the food? Who do you believe provides all that? And you can say, well, brother, man, sounds all good. But man, I gotta make that paper. I gotta do what I need to do. Absolutely, you have to.
Yeah.
But in the end, the one that provides the paper, the one that provides even the future for your own children, well, guess what? He's going to have the last say so. And the question always is if you're going to trust him.
Yeah.
I'll tell everybody that, and every man will always have a point where he's got to ask himself, what do you believe, and do I trust this? And I know from my own transition is that I trusted in knowing that God said this was going to be something. Did I have to walk a fine line in terms of my own personal journey and not get distracted before getting there? Yes.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to have those pity parties.
Oh, yeah.
Like, yeah. But God's there too. He's in the room when you're having that.
Yeah.
Just to assure you and to see if you believe what you believe. It really comes down to that.
Whew.
I mean, if you don't believe it, then you just don't believe it. I get it.
Yeah.
But I'd rather eat the main course than just have just buffet. When the buffet, you can pick whatever you want, right?
Yeah.
The main course is what's right in front of you.
Whew. That's good stuff, man. I was listening to Pastor Tony Evans out in Texas, man, this morning, and he gave the example of when he was dating his wife. She wasn't coming along as quickly as he wanted to do, as he was used to, he said. Mm-hmm. And he said he took her to a theme park, and there was this roller coaster. And he said that he bought 2 tickets, put on the roller coaster with him, and he knew that if they would have some ups and downs, he knew it was this tight little corner that the roller coaster made, it would cause them to physically get closer.
Wow.
And so he made that example. He said that this morning. He says, man, sometimes God will take you through that roller coaster so that you can get closer to him. Because when you're scared, when you don't know what's going to happen, when you're scared you're going to die, or you're scared stuff ain't going to work out, it forces you to get closer to him, man. So I heard that on the way over here.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, that's good stuff right there, because so much in our lives, man, it's just like we can forget, especially when things are going good.
Right.
We can forget like that we not doing nothing.
Right.
We ain't doing anything at all, man. And that's big.
It's
that's big.
Always, to me, nephew, in the moments when a man is challenged, when his faith grows.
Yeah.
Always. And it's never in a time of comfort.
Right.
Oftentimes it's in a time of chaos.
Right.
When things are like, really?
Yeah.
And he sharpens iron, so to speak, but he sharpens that axe where you can go out there and kill dragons and do these kinds of things for your family. But he puts you through something, and it becomes your story.
Yeah.
It becomes your story. And there are a lot of men out there now that oftentimes I think, feel like maybe that the Lord let them down, because, this was here, what. I believe, it is my thought, that God is provoked by our level of faith, whatever that is. That's not to say failure won't happen, but it is to say that I've never seen the righteous forsaken, meaning he's never, or seed begging bread, meaning it's not going to be a situation where he going to let you go.
Right.
You might kind of go through some stuff, but he's not going to let you go.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's something, man. Yo, that conversation was crazy. It is amazing to see how God has helped Brother Mitch over the last 10 plus years, and how he's continuing to bless that ministry and help him as he moves forward. And if you're gaining any type of value from this podcast, I would like to know. So if you're listening to this on Apple, I want you to leave a review and let us know if this is a helpful podcast. And also maybe give us some suggestions on some things and maybe some people that we can talk to in the future. And if you're watching this on YouTube, I want you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button, smash the like button, turn on those notifications so that more content like this can continue to come your way. If you want to see the first part of my conversation with Brother Mitch Williams, I want you to go ahead and check out this video right here. Again, I'd like to thank you for checking out this episode of the Men to Men podcast, and we'll catch you in the next one.